Lord, you are worthy. Worthy to be praised. Worthy. You are worthy to be praised. Lord, you are worthy. Worthy. Lord, you are worthy. You are worthy.
Right. 17 August 2023. And today I've got a quick presentation. I'm not sure if my power is going to last today because I've got this incessant and persistent load shedding that is taking place here where I am. So today I'm going to be tackling a very, very sensitive subject. And this is to do with the elections that are taking place in Zimbabwe. Things are coming to a head. Like I said a few weeks back, these elections, you've never seen anything like this. And this is the moment of truth, when we're going to see the men from the boys. And if you're in Zimbabwe, if you're in politics, if you've been waiting for this moment for the past 5 years, this is not the time for you to forward. This is the time when we're going to know if you're for real or if you're a fake person. So it's only 6 days to go. And we're going to see all of it unfolding in front of our eyes. So let's look at the situation at ZEC. ZEC was doing very, very well over the past few months. They did everything that they needed to do. I explained to you how ZEC was trying as much as possible to be independent. They even went to the extent of supporting the CCC in court. They did almost everything by the book. And obviously, this did not go down well with the powers in Zimbabwe, resulting in the creation of 2 factions of ZEC. Mostly the guys who deal with IT and the guys who deal with day-to-day operations and some commissioners, and then the chairperson and some of the people at the top. They were on one side, and then there was another faction of ZEC, which at one point supported a ZANU-PF court case against some of the chairpersons in ZEC or the leadership of ZEC. So we have unfolding at ZEC, or there was an unfolding at ZEC, a situation where various parties wanted to take control, and it seemed like they had failed. But over the past 2 days, there has been a takeover at ZEC, whereby control of various activities at ZEC is now under the military. And I'm going to unpack this, especially the security and logistics has obviously been taken over by ZEC as usual, by the military as usual. They take over logistics, they take over security. And when I talk of logistics, I'm talking about things like moving of ballot papers, the actual security over the ballot papers, printing, things like that, the servers themselves. If you ask right now, Chigumba, what is the login into those servers, she does not know. So we have reached a situation now where ZEC is now totally under the control of the military. So today I want to explain to you what has happened, why this has happened, why the lack of control from the chairpersons of ZEC, and what are the implications, what is going to happen next week, and what you should do if you're in Zimbabwe at this current moment. If you're in Zimbabwe now sitting there, waiting for the election on the 23rd, what you should do. That is exactly what I want to show you. So let's look at yesterday, what happened yesterday. Yesterday, Chigumba held, Justice Chigumba, she held a briefing for the observers. So an observer briefing, you can go to the ZEC Facebook page to see that briefing. She was basically filming that thing with her phone on the desk where she was standing. So what happened is she made some declarations during that presentation, and she made 3 key declarations. The first declaration she made is that only an earthquake can stop the election, or in short, a constitutional court order. That's what can stop the election. She said this election is going to be free and fair. And you see what I mean? She says it's going to be free and fair. And then she said the person that wins this election is going to be declared if they win 50% plus 1. So those are the declarations that Chigumba made yesterday. And as you know, these are very, very key declarations. We've been talking here about that there will be attempts to stop the election, to circumvent the election, because ZANU-PF does not have the numbers. They do not know what is going to happen. In fact, they know what is going to happen, but they don't know how bad it's going to be. ZANU-PF at this present moment, especially on the presidential election, they are in a very, very bad spot. They do not know what is going to happen. So they have deployed the military to take over, especially security. There's been a tense atmosphere over the past day or two, ever since Chigumba held a press conference. You saw today the deportation, in fact, the abduction. It was not a deportation because there were no documents. I just talked to Chris this afternoon, Moralen, and these guys were basically grabbed with no documents, and they were dragged to the airport, and they were thrown into their plane to come back to South Africa. People who are supposed to be local observers, they have been prevented from becoming observers, and the commissioners themselves, they do not know who has given that order. They do not know where it's coming from. You should go and check websites like Sites. They have said it. It's not clear who's giving those orders to drag these people out of the country. For example, in the case of Chris Moroleng and his team, they were in the country for 2 days, 2 full days, moving about freely, doing whatever they wanted to do. And suddenly today, they were just dragged and thrown out of the country. And I want to unpack for you why this is happening. And I'm sorry if my electricity goes today, I've got no backup. We have to continue this tomorrow. So let me explain to you what is going to happen and why it's happening, and put it in context of what I just said, that ZANU-PF does not know how bad the result is going to be. Now, go back to what Chigumba has said, chairperson of ZEC, that the election is going to be free and fair. She's going to declare the person who gets 50% plus 1, and only an earthquake can stop the election from happening. So, in fact, you cannot rig the Zimbabwean election through anything on the database. So the numbers, the registered voters, and so forth. There are only 3 ways you can rig the election in Zimbabwe. You can inject the wrong information. So you can create your own people and put them on the voters roll. But once you have that voters roll, you cannot rig by doing things on the voters roll, because there is a process there of actually a transparent process, the polling stations, where you are, and all that kind of stuff. So if you're going to rig on the voters roll, you have to do it before. You have to print hundreds of IDs and put them there. So I don't think that has happened to the scale that ZANU-PF would want. Maybe they can put 10,000 or 20,000 votes, but they're not capable of putting hundreds of thousands of voters on the voters roll. The second way you can rig the election in Zimbabwe is to stuff the ballot boxes. So you go somewhere where CCC does not have people, and you stuff those ballot boxes with a lot of votes, and then you make sure that no one sees you doing it. And CCC right now does not have polling agents. So that is the second way in which you can basically rig this election. So we said you can take people that do not exist, put them on the voters roll, or you can put, let's say you go to Mzarabani or whatever, one of those remote areas, where CC is not there, and you start marking ballot boxes, ballots, and throwing them into the ballot box. Thirdly, you can go and take grandmothers in the villages, and you tell them to come with their chief, and each person that comes must vote for here. Go and vote here. That is where you're going to vote. And if there are no polling agents, that is possible. It can happen. So because of this situation, because of this lack of control, that is why the military has basically taken over at ZEC. And I've heard people talking about FAS. I want to unpack FAS for you within this week. There's a document that has been made by the Zimbabwe Democracy Institute, which explains what FAS has been doing and how it has been doing it. We want to unpack what's happening with FAS. But the basic fact is that what is happening now, going from today going forward, is no longer in the control of normal commissioners at ZEC. They're not going to be able to do anything. And I'm sure the Zimbabwe government, they would not want to see what happened in Kenya, where there was all that commotion that happened at the end of the, when the results were just about announced, where there was one faction announcing one thing and another faction announcing another. But in short, basically, going forward, the whole process is now in the hands of the military, especially security and logistics. And this is where you win the election. You don't win the election just by going to a campaign. You win it on logistics, you win it on security. And now let me do this very, very quickly. I do not want to waste a lot of time here. Let me go to what are my predictions here for next week. And in fact, for the next 39 days. So let me explain to you what is going to happen. The election is going to be held on the 23rd of August. Chigumba has said on the 2nd of October, that is when the runoff is scheduled to be held. So you basically have about 39 days. We are going into these 39 days. And I'm sure that ZANU-PF is going to try to orchestrate a runoff. That is my prediction. They're going to try to orchestrate a runoff. Otherwise, they'll try to do something before the election. So there are only two things that ZANU-PF can do: before the election and after the election. Because if ZANU-PF goes into this election, and I've explained to you this before, if ZANU-PF goes into this election without a plan, they will certainly lose, and they won't allow that to happen. ZANU-PF is a military organization. They win, they don't lose. It's not possible for ZANU-PF to do anything where they lose. And when they do something, they'll either win or end up with a negotiated settlement. So the options here are ZANU-PF does something before, or they do something which will push this election into a runoff with the goal of a negotiated settlement. They will not allow Chamisa to just walk into the presidency. That is not going to be allowed. And then in terms of the reaction, remember, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. What is going to happen on the ground? Starting on the 24th. So let's look at today. Today is the 17th, right? It's the Thursday. Exactly next week on this date, the 24th of August, you are going to start seeing violence in Zimbabwe. So this is what I'm predicting. Chamisa is not going to accept the results. Mnangagwa is not going to accept a Chamisa win. So you're going to see the first time violence happening in Zimbabwe the same way that we had in 2024, especially if there's a delay in announcing the results. So these are the permutations that are there. Remember what I said. Chigumba, if she was given the go-ahead, she will announce that result. But these guys are not going to allow her. The military guys are not going to allow her. And this calculation that I've done for you here, that there's going to be violence, they've already done it. They know that there's going to be violence, either from one side or the other. The question that remains is, what is the military going to do? I think we're going to unpack that. What is the military going to do? Who is the military? We're going to unpack who is the military in Zimbabwe at this particular point, at this juncture, where we are today. Who is the military in Zimbabwe? Who is in charge there? What are they capable of doing in an election like this, where ZANU-PF considers that this is a sanction-induced loss? This is how ZANU-PF views this, that they're losing because of sanctions. And they're certainly going to lose. They're not going to win here. That is my prediction. I'm almost certain that ZANU-PF will get no less or no more than 35%. I've given this prediction before. ED is going to get at least 35 or lower, and Chamisa is going to get the rest of the votes because of the situation in the country. It's so bad that there is no person who is able to read and write who is going to vote and vote for ZANU-PF. What you're going to have is a lot of people that are either beneficiary of the system or illiterate people in the villages or coward people who are scared, who are already been made to fear, who are going to vote for ZANU-PF. But the situation is bad for ZANU-PF, the worst that it has ever been. Now, let's look at Chamisa himself. And I want to go a bit deeper in this later on, but today, later on is in another day. Today, I want to look at what Chamisa should do. Right, Chamisa is going to be one of the most popular but powerless presidents going forward. However, it depends on what the guys in the military are going to do going forward. What are they going to do, the guys in the military? And as I said, I'm going to unpack this, because remember, ZANU-PF is a system. They control everything. Chamisa does not have support of the military. He does not own structures in the military, does not own structures in intelligence, does not own structures anyway. But he's a very, very popular person. He's going to win the election. But how is he going to ascend to that position of president? This is where it's going to be very, very difficult. And what I anticipate Chamisa to do, and what I would do if I was him, I would obviously, and I think you would make such an arrangement, to be out of the country. And I foresee a situation where he's probably going to declare himself a president, whichever way this goes. So if I'm correct about my prediction here, Chamisa will probably go out of Zimbabwe and declare himself. Remember the mistake that Morgan Tsvangirai made when he went into Botswana. Morgan Tsvangirai went into Botswana, but he did not take the next step of taking his whole people and saying, Mugabe, you lost the election. We're now declaring ourselves the government. And I foresee Chamisa doing this. And I also foresee ED and his people making a counter plan for that, so that it does not happen. So let's look at that. I don't think Chamisa can just sit in Zimbabwe and do what he did in 2018 and stand there and say, I won the election, I'm the president. This won't be allowed this time around. So this is the current situation, a very, very bad situation that is developing, and it's specifically in the security and logistics sections of ZEC. The commissioners, I do not think they've got power at this particular moment, especially the few commissioners, because remember, half of the commissioners are already in the faction that is belonging to ZANU-PF. So this is where we are, and I want to wrap it here. And the last thing I want to say is, if you're in Zimbabwe now, right now, what do you do? First of all, you must understand that this is not an ordinary election. Make plans for your safety, especially after the 24th. You need to make plans for safety. And this is not fear-mongering at all. I'm just trying to let you understand the situation. I've been in Zimbabwe during the election of 2000, I think that was 2008 or 2007, somewhere there. And I was in Harare South. And it can get very bad. Very, very bad. On the election day, I saw guys being dragged to vote. And you remember, Harare South is the only place where ZANU-PF won that time. This time around, election time is going to be like wartime. These guys are not going to lose the easy way. But people obviously are going to try to get away with this. Chamisa is very, very popular. And our prediction is he's going to win this election. He's got the numbers right now. But the military is now totally entrenched at ZEC. I also want to mention what has happened today. And there's a bit of illegality taking place. That's how you know that the military is in charge. The ballot paper printing, this was supposed to be announced, I think by the 19th or something like that. There was a court case today, and I'm sure by the end of the day today, they have told the CCC where they printed the ballot papers. So remember the 3 ways of rigging that I told you. You create people at the office of the Registrar General, or you go to a place where there's no CCC and you stuff ballot boxes, or you drag some old people to the polling station and make them vote for you. Those are the 3 ways of voting. So having ballot papers that you have in your car could come in handy if you're using one of those plans. So just remember what I'm telling you. This is how it is, and this is how I see it. So let's wrap this up, and let's not waste a lot of time. Let me see where I am here with my comments. And I want to thank everyone who's been supporting us. And as I said to you, this is the moment of truth. This election, after this election, Zimbabwe is going to be totally transformed. You will not see the same Zimbabwe that you've seen before, but to get there, you're going to see things you've never seen next week. And I'm promising you this today. In 7 days' time, you're going to see things that you've never seen. So let's see. Sylvester says ZEC and soldiers must respect people's votes without favors. Not possible, because ZEC has got 2 factions. You remember what we said about the 2 factions, the theft of the laptop. Remember the laptops that were stolen at ZEC, and all these things that are happening now. I do not blame Chigumba at all. I think she's doing everything that she can do, and if she could, she would follow all the rules. But I don't think it's possible. Let's look at police. Police yakaramba kuvotera zanu kubulawayo. These are what we call false intelligence. A policeman cannot do anything that the boss, if the boss tells them to do something, they'll do it. Those guys are told when to sleep, when to walk, when to eat. Don't think the police are going to do that. But when it comes to the military, it's a different story. And I think we should unpack it sometime. What is going to happen to the military? I think some people are going to get double-crossed next week. If they're not careful, they're going to get double-crossed by the military. This time around, it's going to be different. And we want to unpack the military structure in Zimbabwe and how it's going to affect this election. Aaron is saying the military is the one who's going to decide the winner. I don't think it's the military. I think it's more of who is in control of ZEC at the point of announcement. And remember what we talked about, mass action. Mass action is a factor. If people are able to come out, then it will be possible. But if Chamisa is Zimbabwe, it won't be possible to just lock him up. Mayere, she's just going to be called by a mom, and the mom will say, "Come and visit here, my daughter," and then they'll lock her up in the bedroom, and she won't come out, and it's over because the CCC doesn't have structures. You must understand this. Look at what happened with Museveni. Bobby Wine couldn't do anything. That guy is popular, but he could not do anything. If they want to lock you down, they'll lock you down. But the situation in Zimbabwe is totally different. I foresee someone getting double-crossed. Then let's see, the military is not buying from its own shops. This one I've addressed it before. It's not that simple. These guys see it as a war. So ZANU-PF has got enough capacity to take all the soldiers and lock them up in the barracks and have their own people managing security in Zimbabwe. They're able to do this. They've got the funds and they've got the capacity. And remember, ZANU-PF is the military organization. The soldiers actually fought under ZANU-PF. During the liberation struggle, ZANU-PF did not relinquish control of the army. So ZANU-PF is the army. So you have to understand this, and what's going to happen next week. You have to understand it in that context. You've got a popular candidate on one side, but you've got a very powerful military organization on the other side. If they take the military posture, then the only way you can deal with them is if either the military guys who are on this side get somehow defeated by other people. Otherwise, normally it won't happen. You have to actually go on the street. And that is not possible given the current situation, especially if Chamisa is there in Zimbabwe. Washington, this is going to be your last comment that I'm going to read. This is a mock election. Why waste resources? I don't think it's a mock election. I think we're going to have a lot of good coming out of this election, but don't expect an ordinary election. Don't expect that when you announce the result, the next day everything will be ordinary in Zimbabwe. It's not possible. And if you're in Zimbabwe, as I said, take care. Watch your safety there because things are going to really go down next week. Right, I think I've talked too much, and I really hope that everything does not go as bad as I think it's going to go, especially there by ZEC. Let's see what's going to happen. The court case has been postponed to the 21st. Let's see when the 21st is. So on Monday. This is the court case where the CCC is going to be shown where the ballot papers are pre-printed. So let's see what is going to happen there. But remember, this moment where we are, this is not the moment to forward. So you have to be opening your eyes and watching. You have to go and vote. If you are voting, you must go and vote. Don't be afraid to vote. Don't be afraid to go out. No one is going to kill you. And if you are killed, you die once. That is how it is. ZANU-PF guys are willing to die for this thing. And we don't need people that are scared at this point, because that is exactly where we're going to go. People are going to get scared. Rural folk are going to be unable to go out. They won't be sure about what's going on. And suddenly, the number is going to be less and less. CCC, I don't know. I don't think they can push the fight to where it is needed. The fight needs to go to a place, as I said, where you don't see anyone walking in town. That day, when you see no one in town, when you see nothing moving, everything is quiet. Chamisa is going to become president, not the day when after that people are just going about selling their wares in town. You're not yet there. If you see people still walking around in town, you're not there yet. And this thing is going to happen next week. ZANU-PF totally in control now of ZEC. I've got no doubt about it. So this is what I wanted to say today. And obviously, I think if I saw well, I saw Ricky Fire attending a ZANU-PF conference. I think, guys, you need to go check those pictures and let me know if that is what I saw there. One of the musicians for Chamisa attending a ZANU-PF conference. ZANU-PF is trying to attract the youth, but they'll never be able to at this point. It's not possible because the situation is so bad in the country. The election is just going to be lost on the economy. That's where the ZANU-PF is losing it. There is no other way that ZANU-PF can rescue this situation. The only way they can rescue this situation is what I just told you: taking over ZEC, staffing the ballot boxes, voting in large numbers with some ballot papers which they pick somewhere, forcing some old people to vote for them. But otherwise, the numbers will tell you the story. Things won't balance. And this is where we are. Thank you very much, everybody. And good night. I'll be back again tomorrow. We want to continue picking up these stories that are happening. Tomorrow, let us look at other things. Very, very fast developing story in Zimbabwe of this election. And all the observers are now there. I cannot believe that they had to abduct and throw out Chris and the other guys the way they did. It's crazy because it obviously shows that these guys don't understand what an observer does. And as I said, it's the military anyway that are doing this. So you can't expect them to think the way that a normal person thinks. Thank you very much for watching, and see you again tomorrow night as we continue with our election coverage.
Mama wanna get it, mama wanna get it nice. I know Buddha meso, I know Buddha tebe, I know Kaya Marigi. .com .com usasarire Zimbabwe anogaya mari
Zimbabwe uyo anotara mari anogaya mari garai mamunzwa pane nyaya pano zvamunoda kunzwa zvinotaurwa pano madiko kumunzwa mugova .com Zimbabwe vanogaya mari vanotara mari vanosiya mari Zimbabwe vanotara feya kuti pamberi zvichafamba sei vanhu muterere zvikubatsirei mukufamba kwenyu zvikubatsirei mirai ndikudze kuti chokwadi pano chizere Zimbabwe vanogaya cash vanopa mafacts vanotara straight vane evidence vane confidence plus intelligence
entertainment current affairs and news Zimbabwe.com usasarire Zimbabwe anogaya mari